The European Union is entering a critical stage of rethinking its security architecture and political decision-making. Against this backdrop, Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orbán keeps using the EU rule of unanimity to stall sanctions and institutional support for Ukraine while lobbying the Kremlin. Below is a clear-cut look at what Orban has done to irritate Brussels over the past year, which tools the EU has already put in motion, and whether the Union can strip Budapest of its veto without breaking its own legal order. After Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, Orban cast himself as the voice of pragmatic common sense inside the EU. In practice, that pragmatism has turned into a systematic obstruction. This standoff peaked on 6 March 2025, when Budapest refused to sign the conclusion of an emergency summit at which the other 26 member states called for more military and financial aid for Kyiv. For the first time ever, the EU had to publish such a high-level document without Hungary's signature. The scene replaced 2 weeks later at the Spring Leaders Summit, where Orban again blocked a united statement on the Ukraine. At the same time, Budapest has deepened economic ties with Moscow. On 26 of March, Hungarian Foreign Minister Péter Szijjártó visited Moscow for the 4th time in a year, his 13th trip since the war began. The meeting took place just as the partial ceasefire talks in the Black Sea were being floated. In initiative, the Kremlin immediately linked the lifting banking sanctions. The official cover story was to cooperation on fertilizers, yet global media pointed out that Russian chemical giant Orban and Eurochem also explosives that feed the war effort. Orban openly lobbies for individual Russian oligarchs too. In March, Hungarian outlets report his attempt to remove sanctions from Dmitry Mazepin, owner of Uralchem, under the pretext of stabilizing fertilizer markets, even though those same companies supply Russia with TNT and propellant ingredients. The United States might in theory have accepted partial concessions in return for peace talks, but it ran into an uncompromising EU. Access to SWIFT and banking relief are Brussels' call alone, because the system headquarters sit in Belgium. Since December 2022, the European Commission has frozen more than 22 billion in structural and recovery funds for Hungary over rule of law violations. As for February 2025, 19 billion orders remain blocked and roughly 1 billion is lost for good. With inflation and energy prices already battering the Hungarian economy ahead of the 2026 parliamentary election, such as shortfall hurts. Funding is now tied to super milestones such as judicial independence, anti-corruption bodies, and academic freedom. Budapest has tabled several bills to show partial progress, but Brussels will not unlock the money until real changes appear on the ground. For the first time, the EU is wielding financial pressure on not as one-off sanctions, but as a long-term level to reshape a member state's political behavior. On 29 February 2025, the Commission imposed a 15% duty on Russian and Belarusian farm products and certain nitrogen fertilizers. Officially, it is an anti-dumping measure, but in practice, it bites directly into Orban's fertilizer pipeline. Hungary markets itself as a transit hub for Russian fertilizer into Central Europe. The tariff does not break Europe's farm sector, yet it slashes Russian exporters' profit margins and robs Budapest of the "we are saving farmers" argument. Over time, this fertilizer front will test sanctions unity. Can Orban trade the next extension of restrictions for carve-outs that help his business partners? When Orban blocks summit conclusion and other leaders simply adopt the text as 26+1, legally that brings few gain sanctions and budgets still need unanimity. But reputationally, Budapest is drifting in sanctions from photo ops to backroom chats. The March Defense Summit was telling. Orban's dissent was ignored and the unsigned sheet slipped into the European Council's final bundle anyway. A plan B is qualified majority voting. Leading capitals are drafting scenarios to drop unanimity in foreign policy. German Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock said at the Europe 2025 conference that it's time to adopt QMV, at least on core security files. The proposal is not yet a bill, but the mere public debate widens the Overton window. What seemed impossible yesterday is now a live option if the war drags on. Article 7 of the EU Treaty can suspend a member's voting rights. In March, German conservative Friedrich Merz urged Berlin to lead a coalition to trigger the process against Hungary and freeze all funds until it returns to the rule of law. Stage 1, a warning of a clear risk of serious breach, needs 4/5 of member states in the Council and a simple majority in the European Parliament. Estonia already nudged that door open on 14th March when Foreign Minister Margus Tskana publicly begged suspending Hungary's vote. The next step would be an unanimous decision by EU leaders, minus Hungary, that a serious and present breach exists. Skeptics cite likely resistance from Italy or Slovakia, but political landscape is shifting fast. Every Russian missile that hits Kyiv narrows the space for special friendships with Moscow. The final phase requires only QMV in the Council to decide the exact penalty, from curbing Hungary's vote to fully sidelining it from institutional decisions. Germany's logic is simple. The mere prospect of Article 7 is the stick, while the frozen billions are the carrot that could be thrown if Orban changes course. Orban is already gearing up for the 2026 election on the platform of defending Hungarian sovereignty from Brussels bureaucrats. His playbook rests on 3 pillars: raising the stakes at every sanctions renewal. The next extension is due in September-October. Expect Orban to stall until the last minute to squeeze concessions for the fertilizer bank or specific Russian businessman. Past rounds show time pressure works against Brussels. As deadlines loom, 26 capitals fear collapse in the entire sanctions regime. Past rounds show time pressure works against Brussels. As deadlines loom, 26 capitals fear a collapse in the entire sanctions regime. The second pillar is a domestic opposition against. Challenger Peter Magyar is rising on anti-corruption rhetoric and pledges to invite the European Public Prosecutor Office. Brussels stay neutral, yet the financial squeeze backfires on Orban. The longer he hits the Commission, the more balls his rival collects. Brussels stay neutral, yet the financial squeeze backfires on Orban. The longer he fights the Commission, the more balls his rival collects. The third pillar is sanctions fatigue. EU public's theory of inflation and high energy bills increasingly ask how long aid to Kyiv will last. Orban seeks to channel that skepticism into protests against sinless sanctions, courting farmers and small businesses tied to Russian raw materials. So, Orban alone blocks the opening of the Ukrainian first negotiation cluster for EU accession. The Commission is technically ready to open all 6 clusters this year, but Budapest's political lock slows the calendar. Sanctions unity is equally vital. Carve-outs for the fertilizer banks would hand Russia fresh payment channels for explosive components. More broadly, the Orban struggle is a litmus test of whether the Union can overcome its own institutional weaknesses. If Article 7 reaches the final stage, the EU will set the precedent. A veto cannot shield authoritarian drift inside the bloc. If Brussels balks again for fear of breaking apart, Orban shows other skeptics that unanimity is a perfect bargain chip. 2 paths now coexist in Brussels. The evolutionary road is to keep funds frozen and tariffs high until Orban retreats under the economic strain and electoral pressure in 2026. And the revolutionary road is to pull the Article 7 trigger, switch to QMV in key areas, and sever Hungary from veto power. Both require strategic patience and the unity of the other 26 member states. For now, Orban must balance between losing billions of euros and basking as the EU's chief dissident. The longer Russia's war against Ukraine drags on, the stronger the EU case for acting swiftly and decisively. What is at stake is not only the credibility of European institutions, but also the Union's ability to back a partner fighting for shared security order. When Brussels finally pulls the lever, it will send a signal not just to Hungary, but to anyone hoping to weaponize unanimity. In Europe, the main rule is all for one and one for all. So thanks for your watching, and I want to ask you to go below and put some comments in order to communicate with you as our audience. So thanks and bye.